drop.
Peace, something we are all seeking and yearning for. Peace, something we were once indigenous to. Peace, something we have lost along our way. Our way to obtaining knowledge of self, the knowledge of our ancestors who were removed from their natural state, the knowledge of our people who refused to be oppressed. In our journey, we lost our grip on peace. In a society of pressure, stress, and traumas, we have become comfortable with holding on to the burdens of fear and anxiety, family secrets buried in our DNA. Change within is our only way back to peace. Peace in our communities, peace in our families, peace within ourselves. A major change in our thinking, in our actions, in our existence is needed, a non-negotiable change. Welcome to the revolution with Sister Taliba.
This is an injustice.
Peace. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the revolution. I hope all is well with everyone. Good morning to you, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Allison Montgomery Littlejohn. I also go by my Muslim name, Sister Taliba Binta, and I am a social worker in the City of Flint in Genesee County, Michigan. So thank you for tuning in. Today I am focusing on City of Flint Ordinance 200304. For those of you that may have tuned in last week when I talked about the ongoing housing crisis in Flint, I mentioned this ordinance. And this ordinance is a very important piece of information. It's actually a protection for tenants in Flint. And if you don't have anything else, you need to have this ordinance. You can find this ordinance on the City of Flint website under City Charter and Code of Ordinances. And I highly advise everyone to get this ordinance. It's 5 pages long, but it highlights the landlord's responsibility in regards to keeping up their rental properties, keeping them up to code. So before I begin this presentation, I want to highlight that I am not an expert. I'm not a housing expert. I am a student of this subject matter. I have some experience with working with clients that have experienced inferior housing, that have experienced the wrath of slumlords, so to speak. And I have a sincere interest with getting information out to people that they can use to advocate for themselves and their family. And I really want to stress the importance of advocacy, to advocate for yourself and your babies, yourself and your family, yourself and your community. Because if you won't, there's no guarantee that anyone else will. And in my humble opinion, In order for you to advocate for yourself, you have to you have to honor yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to know that you are worthy of standing up for what you deserve. And everyone deserves a healthy, appropriate, and safe home. Okay? So let's move forward. Let's get right into Ordinance 200304. So, what is the purpose of this ordinance? It requires all rental properties in Flint to be registered with the city and inspected for compliance with safety and maintenance codes, which provides protection to tenants who are approximately 46% of Flint's residents. It requires, let me say this again, all rental properties in Flint to be registered and inspected for compliance. No one, no landlord should be getting out of this according to this ordinance. Now, in regards to the background information on this ordinance, it was developed after the city's last rental inspection program, which was dismantled due to legal challenges. So the city of Flint passed this ordinance in 2020 to restart residential inspections. And unfortunately, landlords have legally challenged this ordinance in the past and in the present. And again, unfortunately, some landlords avoid it altogether. And that actually is what contributes to the housing crisis in Flint. When you have landlords that neglect their properties, what does it do? It adds to the blight in the city. It brings down the property value in the city. So it is actually a serious problem. And then it also it sets the tone. When a landlord does not upkeep the home, it sets the tone of what's the perfect word I want to use? It sets the tone of, I'm gonna say, a poverty consciousness. If you agree with this, please put it in the chat. If you don't agree, please put it in the chat. But it sets a tone, an attitude, a perspective of Flint residents. And let's be honest, we all know that Flint in general does not have the best perspective. It does not have the best legacy in the past few years. Now, let me also stop and say that I do not want to come off as if I am bashing Flint. I am not. I see the beauty in Flint, and you will see this in other upcoming um, presentations that I do. I just believe that when there is an issue going on, that it is best to highlight it and together as a collective look for the solutions. And in this situation, in the housing crisis in Flint, one of the solutions that I feel that many people overlook or many people are too scared to do or do not think that they are worthy of is advocacy, is learning your rights. A lot of people are scared to stand up. to landlords that are taking advantage of them. Excuse me. My alarm went off for prayer. Sorry about that. So let's get back into it. So some of the key aspects of this ordinance talks about how, again, landlords must register their rental properties and pass inspection. Landlords must also obtain a certificate of compliance before allowing any tenant to occupy a unit. Without this certificate, landlords are not legally entitled to collect rent. Let me say that again. Without a certificate of compliance, landlords are not legally entitled to collect rent. Very interesting. And this includes HUD housing. For those homes or those housing complexes in Flint, they are also required to have a certification of compliance. So in section 24-4.3.1, it states the owner of any rental dwelling shall obtain a certificate of compliance prior to allowing any unit to be occupied by a tenant. Occupying or allowing occupancy without the required certificate shall be deemed a municipal civil infraction, punishable pursuant to Flint City Ordinance Section 1-19. So HUD properties, for one, they already undergo their own inspections. That's federal. HUD is a federal entity. And after that, these properties have to go under the City of Flint inspection, which is the ordinance 200304. Now, let me also say that a tenant in HUD housing has the right to ask their landlord for a certificate of compliance. Please don't ever think whether you are low income, high income, whatever your income is, whoever you are in the city of Flint, that you are not worthy of questioning your landlord. Because this questioning of your landlord is for your safety, it's for your peace of mind. Okay? It's for your benefit. It's for your children's benefit, for your children's safety, even for your household integrity. You should know if your landlord has their certificate of compliance, and do not allow anyone to make you feel otherwise. So, next, in the next couple of slides, excuse me, I'm just going to highlight some of the codes and definitions and sections of the ordinance. I'm not going to read the entire ordinance, but I just wanted to highlight some things that I thought are important to be highlighted. So, the Comprehensive Rental Inspection Code. This states that and confirms the Flint City Council finds that adoption of a comprehensive scheme of rental property inspection of Flint is necessary in order to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city. Some of the definitions that they highlight in the ordinance: certificate of compliance. What is that? That's a written document issued by the enforcing agency that denotes that a registered rental dwelling unit is fully or partially in conformity with this comprehensive rental inspection code. Other important definitions. Who is the enforcing agency? The Department of Planning and Development of the City of Flint and or their assigned designees. What is a rental dwelling? A rental dwelling is any structure contacting one or more rental units occupied by a tenant or tenants for any period of time in exchange for monetary exchange or other benefit. A unit, rental unit, is a unit within a rental dwelling intended for occupancy by a person other than the owner, a parent of the owner, or a child of the owner, but including hotel and motel units and rooming units. So this is important in regards to what a rental unit is, because there are some people, there are some families that for whatever reason have to temporarily or long term, short term reside in a hotel room or motel room. Okay. And this reminds me, not too long ago, and please forgive me because I cannot remember the lady's name that was coming up to city council to highlight what happened to her son that unfortunately overdosed at one of the motels in Flint. And I believe that motel is on Dorrit Highway, and I cannot remember the name of the motel. So, if I'm not mistaken, this motel um, has a negative reputation where there has been a lot of cases of people overdosing there. It's not the safest motel. However, there are families that have to live there for whatever reason. And more than likely is due to them being evicted, um, due to um, something unfortunate happening, excuse me, and not having the economic means to get into another house or apartment, etc. So that's important to highlight. Hotel rooms and motel rooms, or hotels and motels, I should say, also have to have a certificate of compliance. And in regards to this specific motel that this mother was coming up to city council to discuss and to highlight, that's something to find out if they even have a certificate to be in business to rent out these rooms. That's highly, highly important to find out. What is a, well, okay, excuse me, section 24 4.2.1 under owner slash agent registry. If the owner is not a natural person, or if the owner is not a resident of the state of Michigan, the owner shall designate an agent authorized to accept service of process. I felt that this was important to highlight because there's a growing number of landlords that reside outside of the state of Michigan. And so the question is, how are they keeping up on the upkeep of their rental properties if they're not in the state of Michigan? They don't have eyes on it. So they must designate someone responsible to do what they cannot physically do themselves. So this is another thing that we see in the city of Flint. There have been apartment complexes that have gotten so bad, like it's not safe, it's falling apart, is becoming dilapidated. Um, and then you hear on the news that the water is shut off. They don't have any water. The tenants in this apartment complex do not have any water. And then you hear, but where is the landlord? They live in Florida or they live in New Jersey. They're not in the state of Michigan. So this is also a concern. Let's see. Issuing certificate of full compliance. A certificate of full compliance shall be issued if the enforcing agency determines that there are no violations of this comprehensive rental inspection code and that the premises are fit for occupancy. A certificate of full compliance is used only on the condition that the premises remain safe, healthful, and fit for occupancy. I think that's supposed to say healthy, excuse me. But you get what I'm saying. Again, you have to have a certificate of full compliance to be a landlord in the city of Flint. Okay, so let's talk about inspection procedures according to Ordinance 200304. General, the enforcing agency shall inspect all registered rental dwellings every 3 years. Every 3 years, y'all. And then if you have a complaint where a rental property is reported to be in violation of this comprehensive rental inspection code. I wish I could highlight and make that bigger, but there are different ways um, for inspections to happen. So I think all rental units in housing complexes have to be inspected every 3 years. And then there's another aspect to this inspection where it depends on the location of the housing complex in the city, where the inspection will maybe be every year, annually. And then again, if someone complains that X, Y, and Z is or is not happening at a rental property, then guess what? They're going to come out and inspect, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go and continue. Okay. The last part that I'm going to highlight of this ordinance is my favorite. The owner of a rental dwelling must acquire and maintain a valid certificate of compliance for a rental dwelling in order to be entitled to collect rents and or evict tenants for non-payment of rent. Now, if you remember, for those of you that tuned in last week, when I was talking about the ongoing housing crisis and I shared my story in regards to me assisting a person in need, they are being pushed out of their housing complex, right? But when I spoke to the property manager, we're not the property manager on site, but the property corporate was the nickname given, corporate. They're known as corporate. And they're located in another city in Genesee County, in a wealthy city in Genesee County, by the way. I was astounded by the person I was speaking with because he admitted to me when I asked him, well, why would you allow for a tenant to allegedly get their back rent so high where they owe thousands of dollars? And he told me, well, we can't collect rent or we can't evict anyone if we're not up to code. And so then that led me to ask, are you responsible for maintenance that's on site at the housing complex? Yes. Are you responsible for making sure that the inspections get done at the housing complex? His answer, technically, yes. So, how do you, with a sound conscience as a human being, allow, how does your company allow a housing complex to deteriorate? How do you allow that to happen? How do you allow it to get in such a condition where there are units that do not have heat? There are units where the sewer in the basement consistently gets backed up with sewage. How do you allow this to happen? How do you allow things to not work properly? How do you allow this to happen? And you know that you are responsible for having a certificate of compliance, for having an inspection done. You're responsible for this. And you're expecting rent money. And you are renting to people that have children. How do you allow this to happen? My answer, no respect. Surely they would not live like that. So if it's not okay for you to live like that, if it's not okay for your children to live like that, then how is it okay for someone else to live like that on your watch? I'm just saying. Okay, lastly, let's talk about advocacy and resources. Again, self advocacy is self love. Please, 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 please push past the fear of standing up for yourself, especially when you are expected to hand over your hard earned money. Please push past that fear. And to me, because of this ordinance, I felt that it was important to highlight the City of Flint Building Safety and Inspection as a source of advocacy and resource, the City of Flint Department of Planning and Development as advocacy and resource, Flint Housing Commission, even though a HUD housing complex may not fall under them, they can direct you to the appropriate people, excuse me. They can direct you to the appropriate entity that can best assist you with your needs, concerns, and complaints. And last but definitely not least, Legal Services of Eastern Michigan. They have a practical guide for tenants and landlords that is free to the community, and it gives you an abundance of information about your rights as a tenant. Everyone should have this. Okay? And again, I'm going to go back and say this. Go to the City of Flint website and get a copy, your own personal copy of Ordinance 200304. Now, let me share this. When I was first handed this ordinance, I was told, and I'm not going to say who told me this, but this person knows what they are talking about, that not all judges at court, like if you were getting evicted, not all of the judges uphold and adhere to Ordinance 200304. Why? I do not know. I was told face to face that there is at least one judge that honors this ordinance. And I think that needs to change. I think advocacy needs to be on that level too, because how do judges get their seats? They depend on the residents of Flint, right? They have to be voted in. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just saying. So we need people that's going to respect the residents of Flint, which I believe that many people outside of Flint do not respect, and including people on the inside of Flint as well. Some people, some people on the inside of Flint residents, there are some people that um I don't know why I can't get my words, but they join forces with people outside of Flint that do not respect their neighbors. I don't understand that consciousness. But yet here we are. So yes, again, these are the advocacy and resources, in my opinion. Legal Services of Eastern Michigan. Please know that if your situation is urgent, they have walk-ins Monday through Thursday from 9:30 until 3:30 p.m. 9:30 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. Walk-ins. If you don't want to call and leave a message and wait for a return phone call, by all means, please walk in. Okay? I like to pull up on people when I can't get them on the phone. When I need something, when I need a resource, information, when I'm in need of something, I will pull up on you. So, um, I hope that this presentation was beneficial. Again, I didn't feel like it was necessary for me to read through the entire ordinance. You can do that on your own, but I just wanted to highlight a few sections that I felt was important for our community to hear, because again, we see examples where those sections, those rules, those policies were not enforced or adhered to. So, if there is anyone that would like to contact me to get any other information from me, my cell phone number is on the screen, my email address is on the screen, and you can also contact me on Facebook. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you. I respect you. And I look forward to coming with more information that will benefit our community for the greater good. Thank you so much. I love you all. May you have a peaceful day.
To hell with those damn willow trees. We don't give a damn about them willow trees. We need clean water, a public safety plan, $16 million for new roofs, siding, and doors.